Thank you. This Oceans Accounting workshop that will be run by myself and Tana Lairo from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, really concentrating on oceans accounts and an introduction to oceans accounts, why we think that they are particularly valuable within an ocean governance process or processes. And Ty and I will be tag teaming this presentation. So she will start off with some background, and then halfway through, I'll take over. I'm going to share it from my screen, given some of the load shedding considerations that we're playing with here in Cape Town. So here goes. There will, we hope, be plenty of time for questions and discussions of what we present after the discussion.
Thank you very much, Ken. Yes, great.
Right, Ty, I think that should be it. Over to you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Ken. So good day. For those who were not present at the beginning of the previous session, my name is Taina Loureiro, and it's a pleasure to share the floor with Professor Findlay. As he said, this presentation, this workshop brings an overview of a novel ocean governance tool to measure the achievement of sustainable and inclusive ocean development by enabling the integrated understanding of the relationships between ocean ecosystems, society, and economy. Next slide, please, Ken. So the ocean provides people with a variety of goods and services to growing human populations. These benefits arise through the ocean as a source of market and non-market ecosystem service opportunities, such as fisheries or recreation, and also abiotic service opportunities, like mining, for example. By occupying 71% of the Earth's surface, holding 97% of its water and 80% of its life forms, the ocean strongly influences the Earth's climate and ecology. Cultural traditions, religious ceremonies, and human well-being depend on the ocean in many societies. And of course, the importance of the ocean space and its resources for the economy is also undeniable. However, the ocean's immensity has resulted in a belief that it's an endless source of goods and services and a place to deposit waste. Next, please. The development of ocean resource use sectors, both established and also emerging sectors, is expected to increase as the ocean is increasingly considered a vector for ocean economic development, food security, and energy production. Examples of initiatives to advance ocean economy can be pointed worldwide. On the screen, you can see some examples in Africa, as South Africa Operation Pakiza Ocean Economy Program, for example, the development of a Mauritius Ocean Economy Roadmap, the Seychelles Blue Economy Strategy Policy Framework and Roadmap, among others. Next slide, please. So the expansion of ocean resource use, both market and no-market, are resulting in increasing pressure on the ocean and its assets. These pressures include intersectoral competition for ocean spaces and access, where some activities can be incompatible, and also several direct production and indirect consumption impacts of ocean resource use on the environment, and associated ecosystem services, including unsustainable extraction, habitat degradation and change, pollution, invasive translocations, and the various impacts of climate change. As a result, the demand for evidence-based and informed ocean governance is also growing and requiring more complex and holistic approaches to underpin the integrated understanding of the human-ocean relationship. That is imperative to secure not only the current opportunities provided by the ocean, but also the future opportunities. Please, can next slide. Thank you. So I'm here talking about how essential ocean governance is, but what is ocean governance? Well, its broadest sense, ocean governance refers to the systems or processes by which entities or activities are regulated and controlled. You can see some definitions on the screen, and the main aspect of them describe ocean governance as a tool to coordinate the various uses of the ocean and its protection, using rules and norms to determine the boundaries of the human-ocean relationship previously mentioned. And as I mentioned before, since the ocean supports many ecological, economic, and social services and activities, its governance is a complex task that depends on weighing and managing various and often conflicting interests. That is why ocean governance requires models and frameworks to integrate information across and between ocean environments, their economic uses and social conditions, bridging ocean health and ocean wealth, and supporting informed trade-offs. Next one, please. So we discussed how important ocean is and that various activities depend on the ocean and they are sometimes conflictual. And we also discussed how ocean governance aims at coordinating such activities, users, and interests. But there is another thing that we need to be addressing and we need to consider. This thing is ocean is changing. The way we monitor, measure, and research ocean is changing due to tech advancements. Remote sensing, automated recordings, robotics, big data, etc. Tech advancement is also changing ocean resource use and opening access for ocean economy expansion. Today, as Professor Findlay always mentions, we can drill deeper, explore wider, and fish further. So imagine tomorrow. Additionally, oceans themselves are changing, and anthropogenic production and consumption activities drive increasing ocean impacts. We need to account for these changes in ocean governance processes. Next slide, please. So ocean governance and policy development often center on trade-off decisions that in turn are dependent on values. This valuation is related to what we discussed before concerning the importance of the ocean to humans and is largely dependent on three aspects. First, scarcity and utility, where scarcity refers to how limited a resource is. So how limited access we have to it, and it limits human wants. When we have scarce resources, we must decide how to best use them. The utility, on the other hand, is related to the usefulness of something to someone. Utility gives a very useful way of figuring out how to use scarce resources in the most productive way. The second aspect refers to the type of goods and service benefits we obtain from the ocean. There are mainly four types of goods: private goods, common goods, club goods, and public goods. They vary in the level of exclusivity, that is, how many people can enjoy them, and also differ by how limited they are in terms of supply. The third and final aspect of which valuations depend is related to value system and cultures. Of course, depending on different cultures and value systems used, a resource may have a different appraisal, for example. Next slide, please. So we discussed how the ocean provides market and non-market ecosystem services and abiotic opportunities. We are now going to explore how the market opportunities are valued. In this slide, we have a definition of ocean economy. And we can say that ocean economy is defined as the sum of market economic activities, sectors and industries supported by marine and coastal areas, their assets, goods, and services. Hence, ocean economies encompass ocean-based and ocean-related activities with market values. Please can next slide. So the human-ocean interactions, they are based on the utility that people derive from the ocean space and associated service opportunities, as shown in this blue box you can see in the screen, and also include anthropogenic impacts that human populations inflict on the ocean, as shown on the gray box. We talked a bit about utility. Well, it depends on both market and non-market uses. Ocean-based activities and benefits of ocean economies can be classified as direct or indirect. The direct use include consumptive of living resources, for example, fisheries, consumptive use of non-living resources like offshore oil and gas, for example, non-consumptive use of living resources such as scuba tourism, and non-consumptive use of non-living resources like shipping. Among the utilities supported by the ocean or linked to it, we can identify commercial support services like shipbuilding, and also non-commercial support services activities like marine protection services or governance. The impacts, in the other hand, they are resultant from the ocean-human interaction, and they are classified as direct impact of production arising from unsustainable extraction, habitat degradation, and species translocation, as well as indirect impacts of production or consumption, such as pollution or climate change. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the values of ocean economies, they have traditionally been estimated as the market contribution of ocean economic sectors to GDP through gross value add along value chains. But why would we measure the value of ocean economies? Well, it's relevant to ensure policymakers understand their value, and economic measurements are usually the most easily understood way of expressing something's value. Also, identifying changes in economic activities is critical to support decisions about investments, spending, or macroeconomic management. This process requires the choice of sectors to include or exclude, and the disaggregation of the values of the ocean contribution to GDP. So while valuations are necessary, particularly when trade-off analyses are required, and these valuations are typically based on monetary metrics, there are also some limitations of this approach. First of all, the metrics are seldom standardized across nations or regions, so the sectors that are considered or included can vary. Secondly, by using monetarized metrics and market values only, we fail in accounting for natural capital assets, sustainability, and inclusivity. Third, in this approach, we exclude the measurement of sectoral impacts. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I mentioned among the weaknesses of economic metrics alone to value the ocean, the exclusion of measures for inclusivity and sustainability. But why do we need to account for those two things? Why do we need to account for sustainability and inclusivity? Well, the term blue economy has been used with a variety of meanings, including as a synonym for oceans economy only. However, many authors use this term to describe sustainable and inclusive oceans economies, which is the blue economy concept that we are using here today. There is a growing investment in blue economies internationally, and many programs and strategic plans have been prioritizing this model, as you can see in this slide. Could you please move to the next one, please, Ken? And following up on my previous question, why to account for sustainability and inclusivity? Well, a blue economy is based on three central pillars, as you can see in this gray diagram. It has the economic aspect of a traditional ocean economy approach, but it also includes inclusivity and sustainability. Would you please move to the next one, please, Ken? Thank you so much. Accordingly, the blue economy model includes 1, ocean economy, in which the resource production or mobilization maximize production of current consumable outputs, business transactions, and employment in marine systems, focusing on the production of opportunities today. 2, well-being and distribution of income aiming at sharing the proceeds of production in an equitable way, and as produced means are converted into outcomes and improvements in well-being for people, thus focusing on the distribution of opportunities today, but also a third aspect, which is sustainability of ocean wealth, focusing on protecting systems and opportunities and the maintenance of future opportunities. As a result, blue economy models aim at allocating opportunities between today and tomorrow in an equitable and inclusive way. Next slide, please. But then, how can we measure blue economies? We need to integrate economic, social, and environmental data, linking information across and between ocean environments. Can you move to the next one, please, Ken? The assets and the services provided, and the social conditions of such resource uses, balancing and bridging ocean health and ocean wealth. So what we need is a wealth accounting that includes all assets that contribute to our economic well-being, from built capital, human and social capital, and also natural capital. That can be achieved by using ocean accounts. And now I'll give the floor to Professor Findlay, who will dive into accounts and also on the ocean accounts framework. So the floor is yours, Ken.
Thank you, Tina. Can people hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, by having this slide presentation up on the screen, I have lost access to the background of the participants and any hands that may be raised, etc. What I propose to do is that I'm going to run through this rest of this presentation of the introductions of oceans accounts as an ocean governance tool, and to take any questions, any discussions thereof once we've finished the presentation. So Tina has introduced a very nice background in terms of blue economies and inclusive and sustainability approaches as two other pillars within an oceans economy framework to allow for ocean sustainable development, and introduce the concept of ocean accounts in order to integrate social, economic, and environmental metrics in common and standardized frameworks to really, as I say, allow the integration of these three domains or disciplines. I want to just first, before we delve into oceans accounts, just remind people what we're really looking at in terms of accounts. And accounts measure quantities. I don't know what it's done, why it's jumped there. And we need to distinguish between quantities of stocks and quantities of flows, because accounts really look towards, or oceans accounts really looks towards a systems thinking that allows us to incorporate measurements of both stocks and flows. A stock represents a quantity at a specific time. A fish stock, it's a snapshot at a particular time. A flow variable is measured over time, as in a fish catch per year, per particular season, etc. And stocks are obviously changed via inflows and outflows. And accounts are particularly useful to measure the stocks and flows of entities over a set period of time in consistent and standardized manners. And as I say, this largely fits a systems thinking approach. I think we're all aware of accounts in terms of our bank accounts. And within a bank account, in the table on the left, we would have in any month an opening balance. We would put money into our account. We would get some positive growth, hopefully, and through an interest gain. We would use funds from an account through withdrawals. There might be natural outflows, charges provided by the bank. There would be impact flows. Hopefully your bank is not taking money from your account, but certainly when we start to look towards some natural capital accounts, impact flows are really important there. And we would end with a closing stock. And it's particularly important to you that that standardized basically statement that you get from your bank at the end of every month is standardized. You don't want to see your bank account in 1 month in dollars, the next month in pounds, the next month in yen, the following month in euros. It would be chaos. It's imperative that these accounts are carried out regularly, and they're carried out in consistent manners. Just as we could have a bank account, we could have an account of a fish stock. That would be the initial fish stock recruitment, growth, a use through fishing mortality, through a catch, natural mortality, any particular impacts on that stock, and a final fish stock in terms of a renewable resource that may be measured in both physical or monetarized approaches. A non-renewable resource such as a mineral stock would have similar entities, although there wouldn't be the inflow or the growth as a non-renewable accounting process, also measured in a physical or monetary approach. Now, the renewables that we measure in the ocean are largely dependent on ecosystem services. And those, ladies and gentlemen, are dependent on functional or ecosystem function, ecosystem structure, and ecosystem productivity. And I think we're quite cognizant of the fact that many ecosystem services underpin the natural capital, which drives much of our ocean economy processes. Non-renewable resources are not dependent on functional ecosystems. We do not need to have a functional ecosystem in order to extract oil or gas or mine or sand mining, etc. And these are largely non-renewable. That's not to say that non-renewable resource uses or abiotic resource uses, as we refer to them, don't impact or don't have the potential to impact ecosystems, ecosystem services, and the values we get from ecosystem services in the future. But we don't need functional ecosystems for the delivery of abiotic services. Just as Ty talked about ocean accounts going beyond just economic measures to include sustainability and inclusivity aspects, we also feel that ocean accounts go beyond natural capital accounting in their pure sense. Natural capital accounting being the process of calculating stocks or flows of natural resources and services in an ecosystem or region that supply particular resource uses or particular economies. So moving from that, one of the first aspects of importance that we need to put across within oceans accounting framework are these concepts of national accounts. Countries carry through national statistical offices usually national accounts, which measure across a range of different domains, usually economic domains, through the system of national accounts. Now, the system of national accounts is a United Nations and partner developed compendium of how you would measure the contribution, or how you would assess a GDP through the contribution of particular sectors to GDP metrics. Within a system of national accounts, we can draw on satellite accounts such as social accounting matrices or ocean economy satellite accounts, which talk to the accounting processes, the supply use tables, the input output tables, etc., of the SNA that pertain to the oceans and ocean resource uses and ocean sectors only. And as Ty pointed out, quite often these are require two things. They require disaggregation from the terrestrial components of an oil and gas industry or of a mining industry, as well as the fact that there are often challenges in comparison of these sort of accounts between countries, because different countries choose different sectors to include in their valuation of their ocean economies. Back in the early 1990s, the UN and others realized that the SNA, the System of National Accounts, did very little towards talking to the contributions of ecosystems or the contribution of the environment to these processes, and developed the System of Environmental Economic Accounts. Firstly, the central framework, which looks at three particular areas: the resource flows to economic sectors, the impact flows from economic sectors to the environment, as well as the spend of countries on ocean management and governance through environmental activity accounting processes. Earlier this year, the Spatial System of Environmental Economic Accounting, SEA Ecosystem Accounting Framework, the EEA I have there, was an experimental ecosystem accounts process, was released, which takes the accounting process a step further in looking at ecosystems as in a spatial manner to identify ecosystems, extents, conditions, ecosystem services, and environmental assets that ecosystems contribute to the economies and therefore to the social characteristics of a nation further down the track. We have drawn these in oceans accounting through the integration of data in standardized frameworks to provide us with statistics. When we have statistics that are measured on a regular basis through accounts, we can develop benchmark indicators. So these may not be, and it's not our intention to estimate the total value of the ocean resources or of ocean resource uses. Those indicators of particular areas, particular sectors, particular domains, disciplines, measured in standardized manners are benchmarked. And those benchmark indicators are exceptionally valuable because they allow us measurement of trends. And those are the sort of trends that are important when Ty was mentioning the kind of ocean change, the way we measure oceans, the kind of ocean resource use change, and the changes in the oceans themselves that we can start to unpack through indicators like these. So oceans accounting is really an approach of integrating records of economic activities, social conditions, and environmental characteristics relating to the ocean environment, ocean resource uses, the marine and maritime domains, carried out on a regular and standardized manner using both international statistical standards, the three mentioned above, and novel approaches which are being developed through the Global Oceans Accounting Partnership. At CPUT, Cape University of Technology, we've been very fortunate to have been involved with the Global Oceans Accounting Partnership probably for the last 24 months. And the Global Oceans Accounting Partnership, and I would recommend people look at the website on oceansaccounts.org, aims to measure and manage progress towards, call it sustainable ocean development or ocean sustainable development, through the integration of social, environmental, and economic metrics in the estimation of holistic measures, integrated measures, that allow us to assess the contribution of oceans to societal well-being by including sustainability and inclusivity as aspects of these, rather than just economic metrics of the ocean contribution to GDP. As I say, it is not the intention of the process to provide absolute ocean value, but by utilizing relative values, we can develop some very powerful indicators. The Global Oceans Accounts Partnership has recently released the technical document on oceans accounting for sustainable development. The partnership is global, based in the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, but we have a very strong Africa community of practice run through Cape University of Technology, where we are trying to create an awareness and interest, and through that, the development of capacity and what I call an appetite for use of ocean accounts in ocean governance processes going forward. As I said, we draw on internationally accepted frameworks. We're adding to these guidance on novel accounting of ocean risk, access and inclusivity in terms of ocean resource use, benefits and costs, and ocean governance processes in terms of what regulations, norms, etc. are available for the mitigation and management of risks. We are looking towards the development of a system of environmental economic accounting ocean accounts process as a standalone document that would incorporate oceans accounting or that would qualify oceans accounting as a standalone process, given some of the departures that are needed in accounting for the oceans compared to some of the terrestrial system of environmental economic accounts approaches. So through this process, we're really looking at oceans accounts frameworks. And what does an oceans accounts framework really look like? And I want to really start off by just outlining central to these or this resource use of the oceans is an oceans economy. An oceans economy and ocean governance, I feel, or we feel, fits well within the social domain. There are activities carried out by humans. We don't need to have ocean governance to govern oceans on their own. It's the resource use and impacts that Ty was referring to that requires governance processes. And those are social constructs along with economic activities that lie very clearly within a social foundation. And that social foundation, I'm going to position quite clearly, and I was pleased with what Jolene was saying this morning in this regard, fits within an ocean environment. And here we're starting to see a total integration of the need to integrate environmental, social, economic, and governance processes. An oceans accounts framework, this is the framework that's put across within the Global Oceans Accounts technical document, is a complex process. And this is, I feel, is a particularly complex figure to understand or to interpret. And we've identified that there's, I wouldn't say hesitancy, but because of its complexity, it's quite a difficult figure to understand the particular stocks, the particular flows, and the relationships between the ocean environment, the economy, and social and governance contexts. At CPUT, we have identified, or we have taken this particular framework, and I would say we've reworked it, and we've reworked it into a framework that we feel underpins ocean sustainable development. It is a framework that really comprises particular accounting. So it's a framework, okay, and it's a framework that particularly identifies particular standalone, discrete accounting systems that measure stocks. These might be natural capital accounting systems. These might be ocean economy satellite accounts. There might be social accounts, risk accounts, governance accounts, etc. But particularly important is, as discrete entities here, we can integrate them. Well, firstly, we draw on particular frameworks which are standardized and accepted, but we can integrate those particular discrete accounting systems through linking of the flows between systems, the flows of natural capital from an environment to an economy, the flows of opportunities to different demographics from an economy to the social structure or to the social fabric, the particular risks, etc. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this particular framework that we've developed, and I want to talk through it in a little bit more detail to give people an idea of what we would do and how we would integrate these three particular domain metrics in an oceans accounting process. So to start, we would start, well, let's put it this way. Historically, the valuation of the ocean was carried out through a contribution to GDP. And this is really what we qualify through oceans economy satellite accounts by looking at the economic contribution of particular sectors aggregated in a particular nation or a particular region. That only looks at economic aspects, and that is historically, folks, how things are largely carried out in the past. If we were to look at ocean sustainable development, as we've put forward in this talk, we want to look at environmental, economic, and social aspects. Environmental in terms of ocean health, wealth, and sustainability. Social aspects in terms of inclusivity and the distribution of benefits and welfare. The economic activity of the two models, whether it's an oceans economy model or an ocean sustainable development model, are exactly the same. I'm not dismissing it as a process. It's particularly important in ocean governance in macroeconomic planning, in strategic investment opportunities, etc. And so those contributions of particular sectors to an oceans economy are still quite absolutely pivotal in this process. However, it's important to get an idea of what are the supply of resources of ecosystem services and abiotic through ecosystem services and abiotic goods service supply to the economy. It's also particularly important to get an idea of what are the residual and impact flows of particular economic services or economic sectors on the environment. And these are captured through the System for Environmental Economic Account Central Framework, along with the environmental activity accounts, which is what do countries spend really on ocean governance and management. So these flows, where do they come from? Where do they go to? Well, of course, they go to the environmental component that we capture through natural capital accounts in two manners. Firstly, the marine ecosystem accounts in a three-dimensional manner, encapsulated within the SIA ecosystem accounts process. These measure ecosystem typologies and inventories, what kind of ecosystems we have in a particular region, their extent, their condition, the ecosystem services and environmental assets that arise from those ecosystems. The other aspect that's important here are the abiotic goods and services that arise from those or through those natural capital accounts, the non-renewable aspects. Those environments also have particular value in terms of non-market and non-use values that Prof. Rashid spoke about this morning. And those really contribute to ocean welfare. These are aspects of non-market values, maybe in recreation, maybe in aesthetics, maybe in why we protect certain areas, why we protect certain species just for their existence values. That's welfare aspects are captured within social accounts, along with the contribution of economic sectors to employment opportunities, gender and demographic equity within social accounting matrices that can be measured through the system of national accounts. So through this social accounting, we are capturing here the inclusivity aspects, the equitable access aspects that are important within a really triple bottom line model that we are proposing here through oceans accounting process. The residual and impact flows from economic sectors drive back into the environment, but we need to look at those in terms of risk. And we need to also quantify risk both in terms of natural risk and anthropogenic risk. And as Ty mentioned, we look at a basket of anthropogenic risk factors of unsustainable extraction, pollution, habitat modification, the myriad of aspects of climate change, and invasive translocations. And those anthropogenic risks really talk to this pipeline of impact flows from economies back to the environment. But I want to just put forward here that those risks, ladies and gentlemen, do not stay within the environments. If we compromise a fish ecosystem, we will compromise a fish stock. If we compromise a fish stock, we will compromise a total allowable catch. And the flow of fish, the supply of fish to an economy. The supply of fish, a reduction of the supply of fish to economy will result in the reduction of the use of fish within those fisheries economic sectors and a loss of opportunities to fishers across the range of that economic sector. So it's really important here that we see that risk doesn't only reside within the environmental aspects, but can transcend right across the framework that we are proposing here within oceans accounting. How do we manage such risk? Well, such risk is really mitigated through governance, ocean governance processes. The rules, the regulations, the norms, the entire aspects across scales and across actors within this process in order to manage the interactions of humans through resource uses and their impacts that we've identified earlier in this talk. One of the advantages of oceans accounting is that we can come up at the end of the day with summary accounts that provide us with an overarching understanding of the contribution of oceans to societal well-being, benefits and costs, as well as an idea that's largely focused on flows and flow metrics, but can also provide us with a very clear idea of national wealth or ocean wealth in terms of natural capital, non-produced capital, produced capital, human capital that goes further than just job opportunities, expertise, experience, etc. And so what we're proposing here through Oceans Accounts is a complex framework that integrates through these flows social, economic, and environmental domains. One of the things that I need to put forward across here, it is not necessarily the intention to undertake the entire Oceans Accounts framework process at a particular, at one go, at one particular time. The important thing here is that whether we're doing natural capital accounts in the ocean, or whether we're doing oceans economy satellite accounts, or whether we're doing social accounts, or even risk accounts, the important thing that I see here, or that we push for, is that there's a need to ensure that what we are doing is being done in a consistent manner that can allow, in future development of other accounts, integration between these accounts. We want to ensure that what we are doing within some of these accounting processes talks to the bigger picture and allows for integration down the track, rather than getting to a stage down the track of the realization that the particular natural capital accounts that we've done do not talk to the central framework or do not integrate within ocean economy satellite accounts processes. We believe that the framework can be utilized for both descriptive and analytical processes. So the framework we feel is really good for identifying or describing particular aspects through accounts processes on a regular basis, therefore developing indicators. But there are also approaches for modeling within the process, within the accounting process, that allows us to start looking at things in an analytical manner. They're saying, if we do this, if we do X, then Y will happen in this area, and Z will happen through cascading effects in other areas. So both descriptive and analytical advantages or opportunities within the process. The accounts really are driven through input of data through table groups. I'm not going to go through this in detail now, but each of the particular accounts would have particular information that would drive the accounting process. Sometimes these these table groups or this information is derived from another accounting area through a flow. For example, the natural capital asset resource would be developed through the natural capital accounts, but flow through the central framework. So there's a fair amount of integration in these table groups that we are looking at here. And the advantage of those, as I say, allows us hugely to integrate some of these valuation systems that we feel are absolutely imperative and required for ocean governance processes in the long run. What do we get out of these processes? As I was saying, and as I said in a question to Prof. Rashid this morning, absolute value of the ocean is not what we're after here. We are after benchmark indicators. By benchmark indicators, I mean indicators that we can compare against previous past measurements or future measurements as targets. And as benchmark indicators, we're really looking at trends. How are oceans and ocean resource uses and the way through changed ocean metrics utilized. And these indicators are particularly valuable, we feel, in governance processes going forward. So we push quite hard that there are very strong policy and governance use cases for ocean accounts. through the development of integrated indicators that decision makers can utilize for informed decision-making processes. And these extend from natural capital accounts to national accounts to social accounts. And therein lies the advantage through these integrated processes, is that we are talking across these three domains that we're referring to. They have particular value in strategic and planning decisions, such as marine spatial planning, the formulation of strategic development plans, in regulatory decisions, in the promulgation of regulatory instruments, the granting of permits, the licensing of ocean activities, for example. They are really important, or they have a particular opportunity in operational and management decisions, integrated coastal zone management, management of marine protected areas, disaster risk response, etc. The ocean's economy aspects have very strong importance in terms of finance and investment decisions. And oceans accounts also play a critical role in technical advice and reporting, cost-benefit assessments, environmental impact assessments, and as well as utilizing indicators to report progress against national agreed commitments. So just to recap very quickly, or to put this in context, we heard from Prof. Rashid this morning that there was the importance of the blue economy to Africa, and there are a number of continental and regional blue economy initiatives in scale or in scope from the African Union, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, in regional organizations such as IORA, the Indian Ocean Rim Association, in aspects such as the Abidjan or Nairobi conventions, through membership of 3 African nations. So basically 3 African nations in orange there are members of the high-level panel for sustainable oceans economies. All 14 member nation heads have agreed to incorporate oceans accounting into their ocean governance processes by 2025. And there are a number of national imperatives, which Ty talked about earlier, where countries are advancing, particularly ocean economy, blue economy and ocean economy development processes. The Global Oceans Accounting Partnership has just received quite significant funding to initiate pilot studies in 3 areas, those 3 areas being in Table Bay, South Africa, in the Bazaruto region of Mozambique, as well as the Kilifi area of Kenya, and along with a NRF Community of Practice project for Algoa Bay, provides us with 3 case study projects in order to look at how is the applicability and the efficacy of a framework that has been developed in or advanced in developed countries, and how pertinent is it in ocean governance processes, along with aspects such as MSP in African contexts. The Global Oceans Accounts Partnership Project, as I say, really talks to Bazaruto, Table Bay, and the Kilifi region of Kenya. It ties into some particular national and international imperatives. And as I say, along with the NRF Community of Practice program run through Nelson Mandela University for Algoa Bay, provides us with these pilot study projects. What we push for here is, along with ocean governance and management tools such as MSP, integrated coastal zone management, ecosystem-based approaches, blue economy financing, we argue that integrated ocean accounting has a critical role to play in blue economy governance and advancement within Africa. We talked about changing ocean science data, large volumes of big data now being generated through ocean science processes that are providing us with information on the changing ocean across disciplines, from physical oceanography right through to economic sciences. Through integration of such big data in standardized and consistent ocean accounts frameworks that look at ocean resource use in a holistic basis, we can develop statistics, ocean statistics. And because these statistics are measured in a standardized, regular process, they provide us, as I say, with very clear indicators, and indicators of ocean change, ocean resource use change, etc. Those indicators we feel are incredibly valuable for modeling and the development of scenarios and scenario plans. And such scenario plans we feel are absolutely critical in informed policy development between governments as authorities and societies as users. Sorry, let's go back, jump one. Kai, do you want to jump in here?
Yes, I can. I just apologize because as I am joining from my phone, the load shedding kicked off here. I will keep the camera off, but I think you got enough from my face before. So, of course, as everything in life, there are some challenges for the implementation of ocean accounts. And where we have challenges, we might also have opportunities. So a system of ocean accounts needs to take into consideration several facets. For example, user needs, data variability, scale, scope, and associated statistical units, area or geographic coverage, and associated boundary porosity in a highly dynamic domain, timeframes and accounting period frequency and duration, and aspects of stakeholder engagement as well. Also, resources and costs. As a result, there are some challenges related to its applicability, and we are going to explore those challenges and also potential opportunities there. The first one I would bring today is stakeholder engagement. We saw an amazing presentation in our session before talking about how relevant it is and how we need to be concerned about inclusion, right, of all the involved. So this is a key step in ocean accounts, usually used to address, as ocean accounts are usually used to address specific policy needs or governance gaps. They tend to be shaped by user needs, and such needs are only fully evaluated through engagement. Engagement is also vital for data access, as the holistic information used by this approach tend to be scattered across different groups, entities, or institutions. So the best way to overcome such challenge is by involving potential data providers and information users since the beginning of the process, supporting a lateral collaboration. Stakeholder engagement is a crucial issue for two-way information flows. The second aspect that I would bring as a challenge would be data. And then I talk about data availability, accessibility, sensitivity, data sharing, and data acquisition. It can be another challenge, particularly from the often siloed data that we use in this framework. It's essential to recognize that missing data don't preclude the implementation of ocean accounts as long as the data gaps are identified and acknowledged. So sometimes people look at the framework and they think, okay, I'll never have enough data to input here, but that's not the case. Through our experience, we realize that it's better use the data we have than to use no data. So we just need to remember to flag the gaps we have. And with the time, more data we collect, better the models, better the framework, and we just improve. So it's an adaptive process, and it builds up and increases in its capability of producing better and better indicators. So still to overcome such issues, it's also possible to gather reliable public data, for example, open data, or establish data sharing arrangements with relevant institutions. We can also use model data to fill information gaps and conduct data collection by fieldwork or socioeconomic service. Actually, data sharing agreements are an essential strategy to remove barriers between agencies if partners give sufficient attention to data confidentiality, sensitivity, and proprietorship. A third challenge is the lack of capacitated personnel with experience across all environmental, economic, and social domains. So invest in capacity building is crucial. It's crucial to train the people involved in this process, and we should actually prioritize it. And this is one of the priorities of GoApp. So they offer a lot of workshops and training, and we offer those through the African Community of Practice as well. The last challenge we face is related to transdisciplinarity. And it is somehow related to the previous challenge I mentioned, because we will never have, or it's difficult to have someone that is highly capacitated in all the domains, social, economic, and environmental domains that an ocean accounts uses. But we can also solve that by transdisciplinary work, putting the people with different backgrounds to work together. So as a process that transcends social, environmental, and economic domains, as I said before, ocean accounts benefit from multidisciplinary teams. However, specialists with different experience and knowledge might face challenges to work together. We've been feeling that during our work. For example, those with biophysical knowledge struggle to connect their data and understand macroeconomic models or vice versa. So it's necessary to build this willingness and skills, especially in early career researchers. We now had a long presentation about how the ocean value is important and how it can be measured, why holistic indicators are critical when pursuing a sustainable and inclusive ocean development, and how ocean accounts can be a valuable tool to complement other governance tools and decision-making approaches. So I hope you could understand what ocean accounts consist of and that you consider this tool in your future endeavors. I don't know, Ken, shall we open for questions? Do you have time for that? I think yes. What do you think?
Yes, thank you, Ty. Just finishing up, we will put our, obviously, our relevant addresses, etc., in the chat box as well. But I just want to add to this, the aim here of this workshop, this presentation, is to introduce people to oceans accounts as an ocean governance tool, an ocean governance process. And we would really like to engage with participants here in the meeting today, going forward into creating or developing this particular discipline, this or transdisciplinary approach in ocean valuation and ocean governance, or the importance of ocean valuation in ocean governance going forward. Thank you for your listening to us, and we'd be really happy to open the floor to any discussions, any questions going forward. Thank you. Hi, would you like to just take any questions at the moment while I just reset and switch off PowerPoint? Actually, I'll leave the PowerPoint on just in case we need to refer back to it. Are there any questions from the floor in this regard and what we've talked about? Any discussions? Anybody want to clarifications or such aspects?
I see Jolene's hand up.
No, thank you very much.
Sure, Jolene, go ahead, please.
Oh, sorry. Thank you very, very much. I mean, I think it really is a very important conversation in terms of, you know, how one accounts for the use of oceans. And, you know, given the stress on transdisciplinary work and groupings that are essential, as well as I would specifically highlight the data gaps. And just from that gendered perspective, that is one of the key challenges, is really getting that gender data. You know, so for example, if you look at different countries, it's very hard to do comparisons in terms of inclusivity or gender inclusivity, because the data is just not available at all. And then you have other countries who are very good at data capturing. So, you know, I think for me, perhaps something to consider in your discussion with stakeholders on the ocean accounting framework is almost, for lack of a better phrase, standardizing how one captures that gendered data within the blue economy activities.
Thanks for that, Jolene. And so one of the aspects that you're raising here is data gaps and data paucity, and therefore the driving of research priorities in order to fill such gaps. And we feel that's quite a critical component of this, in terms of we don't necessarily want to throw the process out completely because they are not the data available. The other aspect of this is that it's been quite an eye-opener for me as a biologist and as an ecologist, is data availability through aspects such as national statistical offices, where very often some of these data are available. If you raised it with me about 3 or 4 years ago, I would not have been aware of these sort of availability or these data availability. And certainly within the pilot studies, it's been important to engage with national statistical offices to see where such demographic data are available. They often aggregated nationally and require some disaggregation, but they are a useful aspect there. Ty, do you want to come in here?
Yes, please. So this is something that I wanted to raise during Jolene's presentation as well, and I think it aligns very well here. So thank you for your question and your comment, Jolene, and for your response, Ken. But one thing that I was considering, and perhaps it might be just because I'm not experienced enough in the field, but usually when we use this demographic data that you mentioned before, Ken, I think they fail, at least for now, to include the other gender identifications that Jolene mentioned before in her presentation. And that's something that I really think we should focus on and include other gender identifications in our social matrices and how we bring those gender issues to the accounting processes.
Yeah, certainly the aspects that I would be talking to through national statistical offices would be very formal employment figures, ownership, access, and those aspects. I think they provide a start. They're certainly not complete and conclusive in everything that is required. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions, comments? I know some of you in the audience have heard of this before. I can see names that I've presented to before, but others I'd be very interested to hear how or if what we propose here aligns with the particular blue economy approaches, either on a regional basis through the Nairobi Convention, for example, or on a national basis, advancing of national blue economy programs.
I actually have a question, Ken, or something that we could discuss if you don't mind.
Sure, we've got 2 minutes, Dan, I think.
Perfect. Okay, so one thing that I think it would be nice to talk about is how you presented that very comprehensive and thorough framework, but we tend to have entry points for the framework. For example, specific accounting that need to start the implementation of such process. So would you like to comment on that, perhaps?
Yeah, what I was putting across in that framework is that it's really not necessary to tackle the whole beast at one sitting. That we, in particular cases, we have entities that are doing marine ecosystem accounts only, or particular countries, particularly some very, very strong cases in Europe of what are called sea satellite accounts or ocean satellite accounts that are also carried out in places like Portugal, the US through Charlie Colgan's lab, for example, are very good at those components. And so I think what Ty is referring to here is that there could be different entry points that a country or a region initiates in an oceans accounts process through the SEA ecosystem accounts process to develop marine ecosystem accounts, or through the SNA components for oceans economy satellite accounts, input output tables, supply use tables, etc., or through the social accounts. And that these entry points, it's not always necessary for countries to be looking at the same accounting systems, but it is, we feel, really important if we want to get regional comparability, if we want to compare a blue economy within Mozambique or South Africa or Tanzania or Kenya that is measured through this oceans accounting process, standardization is particularly important so that we can aggregate in a transboundary manner, and we're not comparing apples to oranges when we do so. Ty, is that what you were getting at, or is there something else you wanted to cover in your comment?
No, it is. It is. I was just wondering, like, for example, would you in any sense start by a risk account, for example, or by governance accounts, or would it be necessary to start by specific points?
So I've been having some thought about this, Ty, and I think it is possible to do governance accounts ab initio without going to the others. My concern there, and the risk account, I think, is the one that is different because the risk is very dependent on flows, and flows are from systems or from stocks. So it would be difficult to define those flows of risks from particular sectors if you haven't already identified those sectors that you're dealing with within an oceans economy satellite account, for example. So particularly with risk, and to some extent with governance, because you're using governance to manage risk, those are probably lesser priorities as starting points. They're important aspects in a framework, but they would be difficult to start out an accounting process looking at ocean risk if one hasn't already looked at marine ecosystem accounts and what particular ecosystems or what sectors are at risk through these sort of ocean economy resource use processes.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Folks, thanks very much. I think our time up is at 12:45. Let me just check that. Yep, we break for lunch from 12:45 to 13:15, where I believe the early career scientists have a facilitated breakout session or break session. But I thank you for your ears and listening to this workshop. I'd be very happy to engage with any of you if you approach me or approach Ty directly, either during the course of this meeting or down the track. This is an ongoing process in the development or the advancement or the creation of awareness and interest in oceans accounting processes in Africa. I would really like to recommend you look at the oceansaccounts.org webpage of the Global Oceans Accounts Partnership. The advantage of working through the Global Oceans Accounts Partnership is that many of the countries through the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific have, and their advancement of oceans accounts means that oceans accounting is far more advanced in the Asia Pacific region than in the Africa region. And the advantage of this, folks, is the ability, or what allows us to draw on the experience of oceans accounts practitioners in those other areas. And it's been really great to engage with people from Indonesia, Vietnam, Fiji, Australia, etc., to get an understanding of how they've dealt with some of the challenges that Ty was referring to, how they've overcome them. They're not always contextually correct in an African situation, but part of this goes to adapting to ensure that we can utilize oceans accounts in the best manner going forward. I thank you for your listening to this, and look forward to engagement with any of you going forward. Ty, do you want to say anything last minute?
Yes, just a big thank you for you all, and that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, folks. I think we reconvene at 13:15 in the plenary. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you.